Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was like a live Pictionary type thing.
I'm the easiest person to draw ever. It's just a circle with glasses, man.
Just a circle with glasses.
It is.
You're listening to Biz Buds. Super authentic, actionable advice.
We're going to open the kimono and show you what's inside.
I'm scared to see inside Mike's kimono.
Hey, it's Mike and Tom with Biz Buds.
If you like geeking out over business, marketing, and entrepreneurship, this is the podcast for you.
Welcome back to the Biz Buds Podcast, all our Biz Buddies. We are so excited to be back with you this week for another episode of the Biz Buds Podcast. Today, I am with my mate, Tom Ross Media. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm fantastic, thank you. I'm with my buddy, Mike.
Hey, good. See, I talk like a Brit. You talk like a American.
Masterful accents all around.
Yeah, your American accent is funnier to me than my British accent. My British accent really needs some work. It's more sad than funny.
I think I think we need a whole episode.
We do.
Your alter ego.
Today we are on episode number 25, which is all about what to do when nothing is working in your business. You're trying things, you can't get unstuck, you can't get momentum, the experiments you're running don't seem to be working, and you're at a loss for what to do next. That's what we're going to dig into deep today on the Biz Buds Podcast. And Tom, why don't you kick us off with a few first ideas?
Yeah, so really there was one fundamental idea that popped in my head when we agreed on this topic, and that is the basic rule that if you want things to change or you want something to change, then things cannot stay the same in terms of the work and the execution you're putting in. And it sounds so blindingly obvious, but I think a lot of people, they anticipate growth, they want to grow, they have ambitions around growth or whatever change they're looking to find, but they're not willing to actually audit what they're doing and to change it, because, you know, the very nature of a plateau is when you are doing things the same. Mm-hmm. You don't try new stuff. You don't mix things up. You don't drop what isn't working. You don't double down on what is working. You don't explore new strategies. I see so many people out there, particularly those earlier in their journey, and they just feel stuck. Nothing's working, but they're not constantly mixing it up. They're just doing the same thing, sometimes for years. They are dragging their feet for years. And I'm empathetic to that because I think they don't know what to do. Yeah. They don't know what to mix up. They don't know where to start. So they keep doing the same thing, even though it's not working. And you can map this to most areas of life. There's people who try various diets and things like that to lose weight, and it doesn't work, but they just pursue it miserably for years. Yeah. And I think that's a good analogy because it can feel pretty miserable when you're in that spot with your business.
What's the quote? Actually, who said it? I think the quote is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. Who said it? Was like Albert Einstein or Thomas Edison or somebody, you know, that's who it's attributed to, some big thought leader person like that. It probably is one of those quotes that was, you know, by John Smith somewhere, and it's author unknown. It's probably one of those, but I'm not sure where it came from, but that's the concept. If the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's why I think you nailed it, where people get stuck, because they're either afraid to try something new or they don't know what to try. They haven't learned new strategies. They don't experiment, and they just keep grinding on the same thing, hoping for a different result. And it'll drive you crazy, and it'll eventually drive your business into the ground. Adaptation is what makes a business continue to grow over time. Your business, Tom, how long ago did you start Design Cuts?
7 years.
7 years. In 7 years, ballpark the number of marketing, business, sales experiments that you've run in 7 years trying to get traction on your business.
At least hundreds.
At least hundreds. And it was the same at my agency. While I was growing my agency, it was experimentation. Always looking at what is happening in the business world right now, what's happening in the industry, what is my agency positioned to do, and do I still fit with what's going on? And what marketing idea did I try and it didn't work? It was everything. Magazine ads, trade shows, pay-per-click, sales reps. It was like just trying a variety of different things. Most of my experimentation was around marketing and sales. How do I get my name out there? Because we could do the work, but I experimented a ton with positioning my business and marketing strategies, sales strategies. That was most of the experimentation that I had. And it was like you. It was just constantly at the forefront of my mind, always tweaking the dials in that experimentation.
Yeah, I think as well, a quote that I like is, if you're not changing things up, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Because actually, if you keep doing things the same way, it's inaccurate that you will plateau and stay the same. You will actually move backwards because the rest of the market will be moving forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So your stationary point will see all your competitors and other people surpass you. And that can be a bit stressful. It's how you look at it. On one hand, it's frustrating because it's like, you mean I can't just keep showing up and doing the same great job? Why is that not good enough? That feels unfair. And on the other hand, it's exciting because it forces you to be adaptable and it forces you to iterate and be a better entrepreneur and mix it up and try new things. And after all, don't we all want innovation? We've seen that as a human race, as a civilization.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine if we were stuck in the Stone Age still? We're at where we're at as a civilization because people have to keep pushing forward and because competition kind of feeds into that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think of like inflation, the financial, inflation. If you stick your money in a mattress, you're losing money every single day because your money is not growing in some kind of an investment vehicle. And so, but inflation, the cost of living is increasing. So you're losing money. It's the same kind of thing in business. If you're stagnant, if you're putting your business in a mattress where it's just there, just protecting what's working right now, and you're not experimenting and not pushing forward, all of your competitors are, and by nature, you're becoming farther behind in the race to success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it happens quicker than inflation because, what does it compound as? What we're talking about is essentially depreciation on your cash. Mm-hmm. So if you have a big pile of cash under the mattress, it's quite a big number, right? In 30 years, is it worth like half of what it was or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And that genuinely happens faster in business because we've seen it where, in fact, I'll give you an example very openly. My company, Design Cuts, we started off doing bundle deals. So we ran a deal every 2 weeks. We entered that marketplace. We dominated it. We made and still make the best bundles in the world. But what happened was it got so saturated because so many people followed us in. We had like one new competitor a week at one point starting up. The wider market, as much as they appreciate the value still, became somewhat fatigued because they just saw thousands of bundles, and very similar thing happened to like Groupon and so on. At first everyone was like, oh my God, I get the hairdryer for 25% off. That's crazy. And when they've seen 1,000 Groupon deals, they become a bit blind to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we recognized what was happening there, and we had to pivot our entire business model into launching our marketplace, which is now our dominant business vehicle. And we still do the bundles, but if we just stayed doing them as that part of the market was kind of going backwards somewhat, that would have been very problematic. So that is for me, like, probably my biggest example in my career where we had to actually not just make little adjustments or tweak the dials, as we often talk about. We completely took our entire business model and pivoted it to something else in a big way. Yeah.
This happened to me in my agency too. For the first 5-6 years of my agency, it was 80 or 90% of our income was from online games made in Flash and brochure websites. These little websites, and a lot of them were like made for TV movies websites that we were doing for Hollywood companies. It has a B-level star in it, and it's a direct to television movie, not a major theatrical release. And we were doing a ton of these things. And then all of a sudden, the recession hit in 2008, and the social media movement really caught on, with Facebook starting to gain a ton of momentum around that same time. And then Apple also killed Flash with one announcement that they weren't going to support it on the smartphones that they launched, and they were going to do an app store and all that stuff. And that killed the online game industry. So my entire business model, that was 80-90% of my business, all of a sudden poofed away just in this little perfect storm of a few things that happened. And we had to completely transform what we were doing as a business. We started doing more enterprise level website design, development stuff, big database driven things. We started to change what we were offering our customers, because if we would have stayed doing the same thing we were always doing, we would have died within a year. Oh, another thing that came out too was Squarespace, Wix, these do-it-yourself, nice design things that killed a ton of brochure website design development agencies if you didn't adapt past that. So,
and I love that example, because what we talked about with depreciation and inflation, 30 years to see a 50% drop, you're talking one day to completely decimate and wipe out a business. And that is the reality of the business world. And that's why it's so essential that as an entrepreneur, you are not your market, and you are not your niche. You're not any of these things. You are a talented person with a skill set that you can kind of drop into anything and pivot. And same thing if you got a team. Like if everything in our industry got turned upside down tomorrow, I would redeploy the skill sets of our team to adapt to something that was viable given the new world that emerged from that.
Yeah, super good. All right, so we've been talking about, okay, what happens, and this is the situation that we find ourselves in as a business. If you extend your business life for a while, you're going to hit these different moments where whatever you were doing before doesn't work anymore, or you've never found what works in the first place. Those are the two.
I think that's the majority, right?
Yeah.
The majority, and a lot of people listening are going to be like, I just keep, trying to do my thing, and nothing sticks and nothing's working. Yeah. So how do we address those people?
Yeah. So I think the first piece of advice that I would have for this is a scary moment in your business when you're sitting there looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't working. I'm not getting traction. I'm not getting momentum on whatever it is I'm doing right now. Embrace that fear and make that be a catalyst for you to make change in your business. So step number one for me is embrace the fear. Realize that fear is a great motivator. Fear is one of the best motivators in all the world. If somebody's scared of something, it's going to cause change in them most of the time. So let this fear cause change in your business. So that's step number one to me. Embrace the fear. Let it motivate you to make changes.
It's good.
All right. The next step that I have on this, okay,
He's
thanks,
reading
Tom.
notes, people.
The next step that I have, I scribbled down just a flow of this before we jumped on the call because I am the prepared one in the Biz Buddy duo here. Okay, the next one I have is stop the global talk. Stop talking globally about your business saying nothing is working. Don't tell yourself that story. Because the reality is that something somewhere is probably working. Maybe it's the services that you offer. You do great quality work. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that you have a great team in place. Maybe it's that you you're confident in the way that you price your work or something, and there's things that are working in your business, or you wouldn't have a business at all, or you wouldn't be trying to be an entrepreneur at all. So something is working. So stop the global talk about nothing is working and go to specific topics. Talk in reality. What is not working? Start a list. Is it your sales? Your sales strategies? Are they not working? If so, write them all down. And what are you trying? Write it all down. Is it your marketing? You're marketing in different places, it's not generating any leads. Write down all the places that you've done that. Is it that you can't produce high quality work with the team you're working with or you yourself? Write it down, but stop talking in global terms like nothing is working and start getting detailed on specifics of exactly what isn't working, because it's unlikely that nothing is working in your business.
Yeah, it's a great tip and quite a good paradigm shift, I would say. So I totally agree. I think, and this is common of so many episodes we've done, start with an audit, because if you don't actually take a look at things, you're not actually going to be able to forge a direction on the back of that. So do the audit, figure out what is working, what isn't, how can you adapt, etc. And for me, the greatest thing when you're trying to grow a business at any scale, especially that early phase, you need to look for repeatability. So repeatability is a good thing. If I keep doing X, then Y is going to continue to happen. And this, I think, is where so many people early on get frustrated, because they're putting stuff out and maybe the occasional like Instagram post or whatever pops, and then it doesn't happen again. And everything feels so random. It's like, well, that kind of did well, but I'm not sure why. And then this thing over there kind of worked, but I couldn't get it to happen again. Mm-hmm. As soon as you start to tune in what is working, lean into that more. And then the key is try and get that repeatable. Then you can actually start to predict out your growth and trying to carve out your growth. And this can be on a very minor scale. So one of my coaching students, Kat, she niched into, ironically, the world of cats and cat illustrations. And so part of her repeatable process that worked was she would go and leave 100 comments a day on other accounts that had cats and had an interest in cats. And she would get roughly 20 to 30 followers back from that 100, which is a pretty great conversion rate. And she was someone where it hadn't been working for 2 years. I think after 2 years of consistent posting, she had 200 followers. She just got no traction at all. And so from this one act, suddenly she was getting around 500 followers on average. So she got per month. So she got more followers suddenly per month, a lot more than it had taken her 2 years to get. And that was from one technique that was repeatable. And that gave her so much motivation and confidence, because she just figured, well, if I keep doing this outreach every day and talking to 100 people a day, I'm guaranteed to get 20 to 30 people back.
Yeah.
It's controllable, it's repeatable. And I think that's the kind of stuff that you need to look for in your business. What can you repeat with a, pretty much guaranteed outcome?
Yeah, it's really good. You see this kind of the carousel boom in Instagram. People started posting carousels, and there are a handful of accounts that every single time they post, it's a carousel. It's a carousel. It's cut from the same template. It's the same type of flow. It's just so every time cookie cutter. This is the carousel because it's working, because it's helping them grow. It's a repeatable thing. And a lot of those accounts don't ever experiment with anything else. And you can tell that they're just dedicated to growing their followers. It's like, oh, I'm just growing followers because it's carousels and that's what's growing your followers. But there are other techniques, like if those people, a lot of those people don't have a personal brand or a brand connection, human to human connection like you do, Tom, and you do a variety of different content on your feed because it's connecting you with your audience in a different way. I think
to your point, I'm about to mix it up even more. I'm going to start doing a lot more video content, trying different things, but I'm going to continually audit and see what's working and what isn't. And, if I post a video every day, I'm probably going to experiment with doing a video every day on top of my existing content. So it's going to be 2 posts a day. So I'm going to scale.
Well, you got to slow down, man. Now, you're running a business. You got 2 podcasts. You got a coaching group. And now you're going to do 2 posts a day.
Now I'm working smart, my friend. Those videos are going to be taken from this show by my VA who cuts segments of me talking, puts the captions on. It's going to take me 10 minutes every weekend to glance through the clips she picked and give a sign off. And then she posts it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doubling my content output. And then I'm going to be able to gauge what is the impact of that, and is it repeatable? Yeah. If I keep doing 2 posts a day, what happens to my growth and my brand loyalty and that kind of thing?
Yeah, good. All right. Well, that's a good segue to the next tip that I have is attach numbers to the things you think are not working. I think a lot of people get into this mental funk where they just say, oh, nothing's working. This isn't working. My sales aren't working. This marketing's not working. And they just start telling themselves that story. And then they start believing the story that they tell themselves. And then they get themselves into a big funk of feeling like, oh, nothing's working. Stop that cycle and go and attach actual numbers. This comes into the audit idea that Tom mentioned. Actual numbers to this stuff. It's not working. That's too general. Nothing is working is too general. And then marketing is not working. That's too general. If you break it down and say, okay, let's just define that marketing's not working. That's too general. Get into the numbers and look at, okay, I did this marketing effort and it yielded X number of some kind. Maybe it was leads, maybe it was new followers on Instagram, maybe it was sales. Your marketing generated what numbers? Because a lot of times I think people tell themselves the story that nothing is working or my marketing's not working. And then when they actually look at the numbers, they might see a different story than what they've told themselves and concocted in their fear-based imagination. That is what dictates how they feel about their business when it's sometimes unfounded. Sometimes just the analysis of the numbers helps you see the little micro improvements that are already happening and allows you to find those repeatable things where you're like, wait a second, I was doing this type of post and I got 5 comments. And when I did this type of post, I got 25 comments. Yeah, it was the same number of likes, but wait, that was way more engagement. But you don't even notice it if you don't go and attach numbers to it. So attach numbers and then start digging in, looking for those repeatable things. And if the numbers don't substantiate you continuing, then abandon that idea and start looking for something new.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so glad you mentioned numbers because I think often people's expectations are out of whack for a few reasons. So I've got a few notes in front of me. I tend to do notes on the fly as we record. But yeah, in terms of the realistic expectations, one of them is time. People say, oh, nothing's working. Well, how long have you been doing it? 2 months. Okay, that's nothing. You need to keep going, have patience. So that's kind of one area where people incorrectly, in my opinion, figure nothing's working. It takes a lot longer than that. Another one is the input versus output. So they're saying, oh, it's not working. And then I dig into their lifestyle and it's like, okay, I got 4 kids, a day job. I'm running on 2 hours sleep and I can commit 45 minutes every 3 days to my business. Why is nothing working? And it's like, well, it is working. It's just going to take you exponentially longer because you have a very small, finite amount of time to put into your business. So you need to scale back your expectations and not beat yourself up and guilt trip yourself unnecessarily. And then finally, it's just having an awareness of how the actual numbers in business work. And I think developing that is very healthy. So for example, look at average engagement rates. We talk a lot about Instagram. There's so many people who say, oh, this isn't working at all. And then I go on their profile and it's like, you're getting vastly above average comments and engagement. You're just comparing yourself to the person who's 100 times bigger than you and more established and making yourself feel like crap. But actually the fact that you've got 13, 19, 22 people on every post commenting, that's insane with your follower count. You should be stoked about that. So it's that kind of reframing. And
I've reframed that for a few people. Sorry to jump in, but people will say, "Oh, I'm not growing very fast," and then I only got 30 new followers this week. What am I doing wrong? And then I go and look at their account, and then I see that they had 300 followers, and now they have 330. And I reply back to them and I say, "You're growing at 10% a week. If
huge.
I was growing at 10% a week, I would be getting 14,000 new followers every single week. And I'm not. You're growing faster than me." And when I reframe it back to them, they realize, oh, okay, I'm not doing so bad. I'm growing faster than him because
they're catching you up.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. I think that's where you get into the numbers and see what the real number story is that the numbers are telling you, not what you concoct in your fear-based mind. Okay. Sorry for interrupting there, Tom.
No, not at all. So I'll give you an example. Let's say these are some actual business numbers and some pretty healthy ones. Let's say you have a segment on your email list of 5,000 people. So you got 5,000 people on your email list, and out of that, you might get a 5% click rate, which is actually, pretty damn good click rate in 2020. So that's 250 people. Those people are then landing on your website, and if it's a sales email and you want them to make a purchase, they might convert at 5%. And again, 5% is pretty healthy. Yeah. There's all kinds of people that convert at like 1%.
Yeah, 1 to 2% is the standard old direct mail, or 1 to 3% is the direct mail goal back in the old days of marketing. And I always use that as my baseline, 1 to 3%. That's a hopeful number.
For sure. And so, these numbers, they're much higher than average. And I'm actually taking them from some stuff we've been experimenting with at my company, which is fun. But that means that if you have 5,000 people on that segment, you're going to get 12.5 sales. And it's very easy to be like, why isn't this working? That's thousands of people. It's not working. It's broken. I suck. That kind of thing. It's like, well, no, actually, as we just broke down, that's above average, both with an email click rate and a conversion rate point of sale. And so for someone that might be earlier, they might have 500 people on their email list, and that transpires with those above average numbers to 1 sale. Or if you're actually hitting your industry average numbers, it would probably average out to 0 sales. And so for the person out there who's like, I've worked so hard, I've got 500 people here, and I only got 1 sale, it's completely broken, it's not working. It's like, no, you just don't know the numbers. You don't know the average numbers and the business numbers. And so you're beating yourself up where actually you're exactly where you should be.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Okay. So attach numbers to it, because that tells you the real story, not the fabricated story that you might concoct in your brain to make yourself feel bad about your business.
I can see we only got like 5 minutes left. So
okay.
Shall we try and quick fire as many points as we can?
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into the next point that I have. Brainstorm strategies to make the changes. Write down everything you're doing and maybe rank it on a 1, 2, or 3. 3 is working, 1 is terrible and not working at all. So write down what you're doing and rank it, prioritize it as a 1, 2, or 3. And define, okay, we're going to throw away all the 1s, they're not working. We're going to try to do more of the 2s and 3s. And then write another list of every other idea you can possibly concoct on how to solve this thing that is not working in your business, and just start brainstorming. And a lot of times these kinds of brainstorms take days of time. Not that you're standing in front of the whiteboard day in, day out, but we talked about last week, brainstorming best practices. You are preparing your brain by doing the whiteboard time, and then you're letting your subconscious brain fill it with ideas. So as soon as you decide, I'm trying to come up with ideas on how to solve this problem, then your brain will start to go to work when you're in the shower, when you're at the gym, when you're taking a walk, when you're laying in bed at night. Your subconscious brain will start doing the work and feed you new ideas on how you can solve this nothing is working problem in your business.
Yeah, I think that's great. And what you're saying is you audit and you add. So you audit what's working out, what you're currently doing, and you continually add new experiments and hypotheses to that. And you know what gets me? Generally, the people who ask this stuff and say, I'm totally stuck, nothing's working. If I point them to something like a Biz Buds episode and I say, okay, you're stuck in terms of like increasing your prices or whatever, go listen to this episode.
Yeah.
There's 20 implementable, actionable steps in there. How many have you done? Yeah. It's like, oh, I haven't done any, or I've done one out of 20.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say, okay, well, go do all of them systematically, see what works best for your business, and then come back. It is so rare that someone comes to me and say, hey, I had this problem with my business. Yeah. So I went and did a bunch of research because I recognize there's an abundance of quality free information out there on all kinds of channels. I then made a list of all that stuff. I tried all of it. I tried it for more than a day. I gave it a good try for a decent period of time. I did it all and still absolutely nothing worked. I don't think I've ever had that conversation.
No. Yeah. I've never had that conversation either.
Yeah.
You've got to experiment to a certain degree where you can say, yes, nothing really is nothing working. And the fact is that it is very unlikely that nothing of all of your experiments is going to be working enough to keep you motivated to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Next tip I have is define your experiment timeline. So Tom mentioned this. He alluded to it in one of his things, talking about you have a family at home. This is a part-time thing for you, and you tried it for 2 months and you decide nothing is working. Well, that's not long enough to make that determination. So decide how long you're going to run this experiment. And a lot of it has to do with your cash flow. You can look at the money you have in the bank in your business, the amount of projects that you're going to bill over the next little span of time. The next 3 months is usually the number that I have people work from. And then you get a certain lump sum of cash flow on the money you have in the bank and the money you build in the next 3 months. And that can let you know how much runway you have to experiment with new ideas. And if it is, I have 1 week and my business is going to fail, then yeah, you got to crack the whip and start trying to get yourself going here. Get that horse moving. And but oftentimes in people's businesses, it is extended out longer, that they can survive longer, and they are going to have more time to experiment with ideas. But define it and say things to yourself like, all right, I'm going to try this idea until September. That's 4 months of time. I'm going to play with this idea for 4 months. And then if it's not working, and I'm going to audit my data all along the way. And then if it's not working, then I'm going to abandon it. But I'm going to keep on this one for 4 months. And then I'll try something new if it doesn't work. But you got to define draw a line in the sand for the future.
So let's pretend for a second that I am a junior person who's struggling with this and I feel like nothing's working. And I'm going to fire a couple of questions at you. And I want you to be not kind, nice, long answer, Mike, but like direct, mean, give me the harsh truth, Mike.
Okay, well, it'll be easy for me to do that to you, but I would never treat somebody else this way. All right, go, Tom.
Good disclaimer. Okay. But Mike, I'm really scared because there's all these different things that you say I should be trying and all these experiments, but I have no idea where to start. I'm completely overwhelmed. I don't know what tasks to start with.
What research have you done? What books have you read?
I've done too much. I've now got 5,000 potential things that I should be doing. I don't know where to start.
So show me this list of 5,000 potential things, because, and this is my side thing. Oftentimes they don't have 5,000 things. Where's the list? Let's look at the list together, and let's go down these things one by one. And you tell me what you've tried of your 5,000 things. You got to talk. You got to talk reality. Tell me how this one. Tell me how number 3,703. How did that work out? Give me the numbers of that experiment. That's what I go back to. We were talking about this here. Are you telling yourself the negative story because you're a fear-based mindset? Or are you talking about reality of the data of the experiments that you ran? You got to talk about reality. Business is all about numbers. It's tracking numbers. And see, now I'm getting into long-winded answer, Mike. But it's about tracking the numbers and looking at reality of what's going on in your business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's a much better answer than I would have given, which is just go listen to the earlier Biz Buds episode on prioritizing tasks.
Yeah.
I love this show for that purpose, because I perpetually do direct people to episodes, because
every single day I do the same thing.
Right? It's so good, because it's like, instead of me giving you a 30-second voice note trying to answer your question, I'm like, well, we talk about this for an hour. Yeah. So go listen to that and get a complete answer.
Yep. I do the exact same thing.
I love it.
I love that.
All right. I might need to wrap up if that's okay, Mike. I need to cut short.
No. Do we want to just run through the one-line takeaways?
Yeah, let's do a rapid tennis match.
All right. So here we go. You have to, this is Tom's first one. You have to want change. That's step number one. You have to want to change. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. Cool. Don't drive yourself crazy.
I'm going to steal Mike's one and audit what you're doing. Try and put it into the 1, 2, 3 or that kind of traffic light system. What's working, what isn't.
Use fear as a motivator to entice you to change the things in your business. Embrace the fear. Use it as a motivator.
Look for signs of repeatability, because that's going to help you grow.
Stop global talk. Don't talk. I don't want to hear nothing is working, because that is usually false. Write down the things that are working in your business, and then write down the things that are not working and work on the things that are not working in your business. But stop the global talk that nothing is working, because that is highly unlikely. There are things that are working in your business.
Get realistic. So educate yourself on how long it takes to grow a business and find traction. Educate yourself on the realistic workload that you have to put in. And if you can put in significantly less than that because of your personal situation, then rein back your expectations and get realistic about the numbers of business to actually understand where you're at and not just deem yourself a gigantic failure.
Define your timeline for experimentation. Put a line in the sand somewhere in the future that says, I'm going to do this until this date, and then I'm going to decide whether it's working or not. And audit it along the way, but know when that date is that you're going to say, I'm going to stop the madness, that this really isn't working, and I've given this experiment long enough to yield whether it's not working or not working.
And finally, from me, take advantage of the huge amount of free quality information around this stuff. Starting with this show, but there's some excellent channels out there. We didn't have this when Mike and I were starting. It was trial and error. Hence, it took us so bloody long to figure out. But there's so much information. Just, consume it, but then implement it.
Yeah, that's my final takeaway. And I love that you're talking about that. It is actually do the stuff. Good grief, people. This is mean Mike coming out. Do the stuff. There's so much stuff out there. The knowledge is available for you. Now implement, try it. Give it a shot. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. Research, implement, give it a timeline, but do it. Do the experiments and see what happens in your business.
Awesome. Well, a great and very mean note to end on. Some tough love from Mike.
Yeah.
It's not really that mean. Even when he's trying to be mean, he's nice. His smiley little face. I really enjoyed that chat. I think this is going to be an episode, case in point, that I'm going to refer a lot of people to because it is such a common issue. So for everyone listening, stop beating yourself up. Go through all of the steps we talked about. Put the work in. You will see a change. I would be staggered if you didn't.
I totally agree, and we appreciate you all listening to the Biz Buds Podcast. As always, we appreciate reviews, and send us a DM. Tom and I love to hear from people that are enjoying the podcast. We thank you for your support, and we will see you next week on episode number 26, coming up next week on the Biz Buds Podcast. Thanks, Tom.
Bye from us.